Okay, so this is some footage I found online just moments before Charlie Kirk was shot, and I have some questions. I'm going to zoom in on parts and show some of the suspicious activity surrounding Charlie shortly before the shooting, and some of this is footage not seen on other videos. So let's try to connect some of these dots. Look at this. You've got 3 people standing in front of Charlie recording him, and this is only from his left side. Not to mention the thousands attending the event, which you know many were also recording. And not only is there one very expensive camera behind Charlie, but there are 2 very expensive cameras behind Charlie. Alright, let's check out some more of this footage and pay attention to the people in the tent surrounding Charlie.
For weeks, the nation believed it was a straightforward tragedy. A lone gunman, a random act of political violence, and a life cut short on a university stage. But this newly authenticated clip paints a different picture, one that shifts the focus inward. Because what if the greatest failure that night didn't come from an outsider, but from the very people who swore to protect him? The video, grainy, time-stamped, and undeniable, appears to capture members of Kirk's private security team stepping away from their assigned positions seconds before the attack. Their radios go silent, their formation breaks, and then chaos. No one is calling this conspiracy. No one is making wild accusations. But the questions this footage raises are impossible to ignore. Was this a lapse in training, or something far more deliberate? How could a man so well guarded be left exposed at the very moment he needed protection most? In the coming minutes, we'll examine the leaked footage, the unanswered gaps in the investigation, and the growing calls for accountability. Because this isn't just about a shooting, it's about trust, loyalty, and the haunting weight of negligence. Charlie Kirk once said that leadership means standing for truth even when it's uncomfortable, and truth may come from the shadows of his own inner circle. Before we dive into this story, remember, this is Detective Kate, True Crime, a channel that stands for justice and giving every case the attention it deserves. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our investigations. And don't forget, share your thoughts and theories below. Every clue counts. September 10th, 2025. A crisp evening at Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk was there for what his team called a Campus Freedom Tour, a nationwide series of student town halls meant to spark dialogue on politics, free speech, and American values. It was routine, controlled, predictable. Hundreds filled the auditorium. Security was tight. Every guest was screened. Every camera logged. By all measures, it was a standard event, until it wasn't. As Kirk began answering questions from the audience, a single gunshot shattered the room. Screams echoed through the hall. Students ducked for cover. Moments later, chaos spilled onto the campus lawn as sirens pierced the night. Within hours, police announced the arrest of 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, a drifter with no clear motive, found blocks away carrying a rifle, later confirmed to be the weapon. Officials called it an open and shut case, a politically motivated lone actor. The media echoed the same line. The narrative was clean, simple, comforting, in its own way. But behind that simplicity, investigators quietly noted things that didn't add up. Security logs didn't match timelines. Body cam footage was missing from 2 guards. And one officer's report mentioned a phrase that would later raise alarms. The protectors lost visual contact. It seemed like a minor error at first, until new video evidence surfaced, showing exactly when that visual contact was lost, and why. What was once believed to be an external threat may, in part, have been enabled from within. And that's where this story shifts, from tragedy to investigation. Please make sure you comment while listening to this update. We will make sure we respond to everything. That's a proof that we are fighting for justice and what is right. The leaked video is brief, barely half a minute long, yet it's enough to turn the entire investigation on its head. The footage comes from a secondary security camera positioned near the west entrance of the auditorium, one that wasn't part of the official broadcast feed. At first, everything appears routine. Two members of Charlie Kirk's private security team stand at their designated points, scanning the crowd as the event begins. But then, something unexpected happens. One of the guards raises a hand to his earpiece, glances toward the side exit, and gestures subtly to his partner. Both men shift position, stepping away from the stage they were assigned to protect. Seconds pass. The camera catches one of them reaching for his radio, but the channel remains silent. Records later confirm no communication was logged during that moment. Then they vanish from view. The line of sight to the stage breaks, and almost immediately, the gunfire erupts. No warning, no alert, just the sound that changed everything. Officials reviewing the footage have declined to comment publicly, but several sources familiar with the case have described it as deeply concerning. The clip is now a focal point of multiple investigations, its every frame analyzed by security experts frame by frame. Still, investigators caution against drawing quick conclusions. The angle is limited. The sound feed is incomplete. There are still gaps that might hold the difference between coincidence and culpability. Yet to those who've seen it, the message feels unmistakable. A lapse in vigilance at the worst possible moment. Not a conspiracy, not a confession, just a painful human failure. One that may have turned a routine speech into a national tragedy. To understand what went wrong that night, investigators reconstructed every second of the rally, from Charlie Kirk's arrival to the moment chaos broke loose. He arrived at Utah Valley University just before sunset, stepping out of a black SUV surrounded by his private security team. Witnesses described the atmosphere as organized, calm, even cheerful. Fans waved flags, volunteers directed students to their seats, and security checkpoints appeared thorough and efficient. Kirk entered through the back corridor, escorted by 4 guards and 2 campus officers. At that moment, nothing seemed out of place. The stage lighting was tested, microphones cleared, and his speech notes were already waiting at the podium. Every detail had been planned, every angle covered. But as the event began, the positioning of the security detail began to drift. According to the reconstructed timeline, 2 guards moved toward the crowd's edge roughly 10 minutes before the shooting, citing a report of unusual movement near the rear exit. Another remained backstage, coordinating radio checks. That left only 1 guard at the front, a formation far thinner than standard protocol for a figure of Kirk's profile. The first half of his talk went smoothly. He addressed education, faith, and free speech, occasionally glancing toward the audience as laughter and applause filled the hall. Then, as he opened the floor for questions, the crowd shifted. A few attendees stood to move closer to the microphone stand. At that same moment, surveillance cameras captured a figure entering through a poorly monitored side door. Seconds later, 2 members of the security team could be seen stepping away from their assigned posts, the same 2 identified in the leaked footage. The timeline shows a brief pause in radio traffic, then silence, and in that silence, the shot. A single round tore through the sound system, followed by screams, alarms, and confusion. Security personnel scrambled, some rushing toward the stage, others toward the exits. But by then, it was too late. Every second after that moment became evidence, analyzed, debated, and replayed countless times. A timeline that should have guaranteed safety, instead revealed a sequence of hesitation and gaps. Moments where attention slipped, moments that would haunt an entire investigation. It wasn't randomness. It was rhythm, a rhythm of order collapsing into chaos, one decision at a time. When the footage and timeline were cross-referenced, what emerged was more than a tragic coincidence. It was a collapse of procedure. According to standard VIP protection protocol, a figure like Charlie Kirk should never have been left without direct visual coverage from at least 2 trained operatives. Every protective circle operates on 3 layers: perimeter, proximity, and reaction. That night, all 3 broke down, almost simultaneously. The perimeter team, responsible for securing exits and crowd control, had drifted too far from their positions. Radio chatter later revealed confusion about an unverified signal, something about a crowd movement that was never logged officially. The proximity team, meant to stay within 5 meters of Kirk at all times, had repositioned toward the rear entrance, and the reaction unit, whose only job was to respond within seconds of a threat, was delayed by what one investigator called a communication void. It wasn't just one mistake, it was a chain of small avoidable errors, each one compounding the next. Experts who reviewed the breakdown noted that the guards appeared to operate on conflicting commands. Some described the movement patterns as uncoordinated, while others hinted at the possibility of unauthorized orders issued moments before the incident. But without full audio logs, the truth remains out of reach. The most haunting revelation came from internal GPS records. 2 members of the security team were found to be out of zone at the exact moment of the shooting, not seconds later, but during it. When questioned, one claimed to be following a redirect, the other refused to comment. None of this proves intent, but it does prove failure. Failure in vigilance, communication, and accountability. And for a team tasked with protecting one of the most controversial voices in American politics, even one lapse would have been unforgivable. This was 3. As one federal analyst put it, security didn't fail by accident that night. It failed by pattern. A pattern that now sits at the center of every unanswered question. Who gave the redirect? Why were key posts left open? And how did a single shot get past layers of professional protection? Questions the public deserves answers to, and questions that may redefine what really happened inside that auditorium. Documents reviewed by investigators suggest the failures on the night of Charlie Kirk's rally were not isolated, but systemic. What began as an inquiry into a single lapse has now expanded into a full audit of the private firm contracted to provide his security.